Woods Municipal Building, 40 West Street, Select Board Room, first floor, Barre, Mass. And the application for approval of a definitive plan filed by Rotokawa Estates LLC on January 13, 2026 in accordance with GLC 41, 81K-81GG relative to property located on the southerly side of Wauwinet Road, Parcel D-71 and E-59 and recorded with the Worcester District Registry of Deeds, Book 45829, page 319. All right, so I guess you want to give a
good showtime. Sure, yeah. Good to see everybody again. For the record, Tom Reedy, intern with Bacon Wilson out of Amherst, here on behalf of the applicant. As the chairman noted, here to discuss the definitive subdivision plan. Last time I was in front of you, we were talking about the preliminary subdivision plan, and this is the plan that is born out of that plan. It has more detail, it has a stormwater report, it has a profile for the roadway. It's still just 3 lots. We expect a peer review. We've sent the check over to Graves Engineering, so they're gonna be doing a peer review, so we don't expect to close or receive any approval or anything this evening. We, in fact, expect to be continued to some date in the future when they're ready. I'm happy to go through at a high level and just kind of page turn to show you what you've got. And I'm happy to answer any questions, to kind of step back and just talk about process for a minute. The first time I was here, literally we were talking about, it was the preliminary plan, and we were talking about the dual process, right? So we have a preliminary plan, have to follow within 7 months with a definitive plan, which is what we've done, and so we're seeking approval of this definitive plan. It is in fact a plan of the land that shows the subdivision into 3 lots. The purpose of it, as I said from the beginning, is to freeze the zoning in effect at the time of the filing of that preliminary plan, and that's something that we're benefited by under state law 48 section 6. And so that is still the intent, right, is to go through, so while you do have to rule on this as a subdivision, really the intent is to freeze the zoning as of the preliminary plan. I've talked about battery energy storage. I can tell you there's been no advances in that plan. If you're familiar with what's happening at the state level, there are going to be, starting in a couple of weeks, 2 varying paths, depending upon the size of the project. One is through the Energy Facility Siting Board, the EFSB, and this is just for battery energy storage, which I know isn't germane to here, but it's also, I've brought it up, so it's part of the conversation. So EFSB is one of the processes. There is town involvement in that, and then the other is a municipal approval. I would suspect this is EFSB, but again, I don't know. I haven't seen the plans. I don't know where they're at in the process. I don't know where they're at with the utility company or with ISO New England. And so as much as we can bifurcate that process from this process, I would like to, but I do bring it up just for kind of completeness. Onto this plan, turn it around so the board can see. I mean, pretty simple, same site as we talked about before. Existing conditions plan. You've probably seen all these in the preliminary set. There was a wetland delineation done, has not been approved by the Conservation Commission, I do not believe. Here is the site plan that's going to show what the subdivision looks like. Lot 1, Lot 2, Lot 3. So same as you saw before. What you'll see in this iteration compared to the preliminary plan is more detail surrounding this roadway and the grading and drainage associated with it, the elevations associated with it, and then the stormwater system. I don't have it here, but we had submitted a hydrology report, so a stormwater report. In a traditional subdivision like this is, you don't worry about the individual lots and the houses ostensibly that are going to go on those lots. As far as the stormwater goes, you only are concerned about the new impervious of the roadway. And so that's what the hydrology report shows. Here's again just a little bit more definition of that roadway, the radius, the sidewalk coming in and going all the way around it, the proposed stormwater pond. Again, more detail here, talks about existing cubic feet per second, proposed cubic feet per second, showing, because they, in the hydrology report, they break it up into different catchment areas. They say here's what's existing in the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm, and then they show what's existing and they show what's proposed. And you'll see that in each of these conditions, there is a reduction in peak flow, which is what the stormwater requires, stormwater standards require. Here you've got really the stormwater system, storm manholes, catch basins, and then it collects it, transfers it, and then brings it down to this stormwater basin. Right here, you've got the inverts in the outlets, the elevations of those to show how it will work, and I suspect that Graves will take a look at all that, plug it into their HydroCAD, make sure that it works for them. This is, again, more detail of that roadway with the topography. One of the best I like to look at is this profile to show the dashed line is existing, and then the solid line is proposed. So you see it's both cut and fill, just of how, when this roadway would come in, the existing elevation is above what it is, so it would have to be cut, and then there's a portion here where the existing surface is below, so that would have to be filled to get to that proposed gradient. Other topography in the surrounding area. You've got, and this is again a little bit more technical, but you've got the roadway surface, you've got the different catchments, the rainfall, and then just the pipe chart about how it's going to collect and convey that stormwater, and then appropriate for Graves. This is just limit of work, so they're showing what's being touched within the field. Yep, please.
What's that rectangle at the bottom of the road?
This right here,
Yeah.
that's a track pad, so just stabilized construction entrance. Right, so one of the things that when they would come in here with trucks, what they would do is to make sure they're not tracking any dirt onto the roadway, it would go over this track pad. And then just a little bit more detail, still stabilized construction, entrance, limit of work, and then here's the different grades. We've got the temporary sediment basin, which ultimately turns into the permanent sediment basin once work is completed. You've obviously got the different elevation.
We're just gonna let him finish his presentation.
I'm almost there, I promise. Again, details on post-construction loam and seed, the sides, and you're gonna have a sidewalk around, and it just shows where the loam and seed is. The rest of this, they're just details, stop signs, riprap spillway, bottom of the stormwater pond, and there's some other details here, planting details of how to stake trees. Again, all things that Graves will take a look at, but just high level, simply advanced from the previous plan, and still a 3-lot subdivision. I think that's this one probably, because that's the one that makes the most sense. Happy to answer any questions.
Other than stormwater, is there any other infrastructure that you study for this? Water, potential septic, power requirements?
Good question.
Why do you just stop at stormwater?
Yeah, that's what's required. I assume the Board of Health has been submitted this plan. They're likely to require positive perk tests or some sort of tests to prove that there's sufficient area to have septic systems.
So you're waiting, and I understand, but you're
Yeah.
waiting for the response to the plan to figure out what more to add in.
Precisely, you got it, yes.
Okay.
So this is like, you have your stormwater, subdivision rules and regulations that have certain requirements, and we were saying this plan meets those requirements. Graves will come back and say, hey, you want to think about these things. Board of Health may come back and say, we need you to do X, Y, and Z. And then we keep advancing it to get to a place where, for these 3 lots, everyone feels comfortable. Yes, for what it is a definitive subdivision plan, it is approvable.
And when do you plan on having the review by Graves back?
Great question. They've been great. Mary Ann's been great. She sent along the request. I think it's $3,900 for the peer review. We sent that check out. I don't know if they've got it yet. If they haven't got it today, they should be getting it.
They've got it.
Okay, there you go, any day, and so they can start the review, and I think they said 2.5 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, so I thought 3 weeks would be good.
For the review, and then, it depends how the board wants to do it. I think, oftentimes what we see is, Graves does a letter, they send it back, our engineer responds to it, updates the plans accordingly to try to get to that place where, when it's next in front of you, it's a clean letter. And then Graves will show up, go through it the same way as last time, we'll be able to respond if there's anything new, just so that you're comfortable from that technical aspect. So, if you continue, my suggestion would be, if I could, if it's gonna take them 3 weeks to review, you probably wanna allow a couple of weeks of back and forth before it's back in front of you, so whether that's 6 weeks or so, to get a date where we can all almost be certain that it will be done by that point.
Okay. So,
Seeing that this could be an extensive project for everybody, because there's a lot of people here other than the board, is there a way for next time that you can put it on a computer so the citizens can see it? Because the citizens right now are blind. And there's a magic way that I know of,
Yeah, we can plug a laptop into that.
Yeah, if you let us know how, because we have them, I don't know if I
I
sent them
don't
to you
usually use
digitally.
this here.
Did I send them to you? I think,
I sent it for the Board of Health.
okay, yes, that's right.
Yes.
So, yeah, we have them digitally, right? So I know that
would it be easier to do an easel and have some
we could,
plans drawn up?
yeah, we
It
could
might be a
do
little
that.
easier for us to
You
incorporate.
got
as opposed to-
14 pages. I don't know an easel going through 14 pages is,
Yeah,
And it,
but just whatever is more
I
feasible
have
for
an
the.
easel.
Well, you would have to bring.
yeah,
Oh,
we
hard
have
copies
one,
and-
it's just somewhat practically, because now with technology, you can kind of zoom in
Oh, yeah,
too,
Yeah.
which is good, and so if there's a question, you can get really down, because this is,
and the
kids at
camera
home
can
that
pick
do
that
this.
up. If we plan it, he'll,
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, so it's available.
Yep.
Yes, we
Does the
can.
retention basin or pond, whatever you've got, does that go before the Board of Health to see if there's perk for that and/or aeration? So it's not just stagnant water that's gonna be sitting there as it accumulates?
I would assume that would go through all the engineering, but.
Yeah, I don't think it's Board of Health, I think it's this board, so part of what Graves will do is to look at the assumptions that the engineer has made. Because there are certain regulations about, and again, I'm just an attorney, but I do a lot of this, how quickly it goes into the ground, how long it will stay there, and so there may be a condition that either prior to approval or prior to the receipt of a building permit for it, you get a perk test that, you do soil borings to prove that your assumptions are correct. And that's a usual condition that's on this.
So I just didn't know if it came before.
Yeah, it'll be
before-
this board. Yeah, Board of Health will, worries about.
Have you done the
worries about different
samples?
things. No, we haven't done, I don't think we've done perk tests yet, or any, especially now with the weather.
Yep.
But you get a backhoe out and you do a test pit and you see where's the water level, and you need certain mounding analysis and separation, and there's a lot of scientific engineering stuff that goes into it.
And that'll all be provided by Graves?
Yeah, I suspect, and they'll look at the hydrology report, they'll probably run it through their HydroCAD, they'll call out any discrepancies that they see with the cover type they've assumed, or the infiltration rates they've assumed. And so by the end of it, I think you'll feel comfortable. It may have to be redesigned minimally, or maybe it's fine as is, but Graves will certainly.
So the soil testing is not done by Graves, though?
No, the soil testing is not
Okay.
done by Graves, correct. They
Because
would
that
just,
was a note from the Board of Health,
Yes.
that's not done yet.
correct.
Okay.
And so that would be, so there are licensed soil scientists in Massachusetts who would go out there and they'd look and they'd say, okay, well, here's the, the groundwater level, and here's indication, actual groundwater, here's indication of where the groundwater is, here's the type of subsurface material it is, because obviously with clay, stuff sits on top of clay. With gravel or sand, it drains through gravel and sand, and so, again, that's like, for me, really what Graves looks at. Like, in most of these, stormwater is one of the biggest issues that you talk about.
And when do you anticipate those test holes to be done so that Graves would have the engineering, the soil samples to review.
Yeah, and so that's what I was saying here, either kind of A, and I'd have to look at the hydrology report to see what assumptions that they've made, and if Graves agrees with those assumptions. Sometimes it's just proof in field after, and if there's, like a condition that if there is a change, you'd have to come back before the board or change the location, or scoop out what's there and backfill with sand so that it does drain appropriately. And so this, just to answer that, I don't know that, I mean, we're in February now, you know, March, April, May is not a bad time to do it, in all honesty. So if the board's not comfortable approving without it, I'm sure we can work it into the timeline. If you are comfortable approving it with some proof of assumption, that's fine as well.
Are these gonna be single-family homes or?
They are lots at this point, so
Good
the
question.
Yeah.
plan is for the lots.
Into May.
I'm thinking outside the box here a little bit. Sir, how many times have you been up and down Wauwinet Road?
Twice.
What do you think of the width of it and the turns?
I can appreciate, I mean, I am not an expert, and I'm gonna be very careful about how I answer this, but I appreciate, the consideration of the board as it relates to the width of the roadway.
Because I think down the road, no matter what goes in down here, something has to be taken into consideration for that factor. It's a dangerous road as it is now.
Okay.
Never mind, you know, 3 houses, it's gonna be more than that, but whatever goes in there at some point in time, if it does, that has to be addressed.
Thank you.
Somebody back?
I'd actually like to dovetail on that if I could. I'd like to bring to the board's attention the location of the access that's being suggested here. Not only is it exactly across from the pond, where it is extremely thin and extremely dangerous in wintertime, period, because it comes down to a negative slope and then turns. I would like to, does the board have the power to suggest that it moves its location to a higher spot, more visible and less dangerous? Because that's a very large property. Now, I'm also concerned as to, or questioning, why is it not at the current access that is part of one of those lots? Right, it goes right to Wauwinet up at the top, just because that's the actual, you know, deeded access, if you will, into one of those parcels. So my concern as a citizen, as someone who drives that road, is very much the overall location of where this, why don't we calling it an access road or whatever it's called, is located on the plan for those multiple lots.
Yeah, we can certainly have that conversation with Graves once they receive the
Thank you.
package. Yeah, thank you for your input. Do we have any other questions?
Scooping out topsoil and whatever and backfilling with fill, that's probably wetland down there, why it's topsoil. Are we waiving wetland intrusion?
There is no exemption from wetland.
No.
There is no what?
There would be no exemption for violating the Wetland Protection Act. So everything on his plan would still have to coincide with the Wetland Protection Act.
Okay.
Which includes the ability to buy out replacing a wetland somewhere else in the world.
No, it's not.
Legally, they have the ability to work through that. So just so people know, yes, they can remove wetlands if they have enough money and desire.
I would hold that statement.
I've seen it.
Okay, I would.
That's why I'm saying it. I've seen it.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying that every project has that opportunity, but
Right, I mean, that's.
if you've got deep enough pockets, you usually can make what people in offices who never live outside say you can do, is rebuild a wetland where there was never a wetland.
That would be for conservation too.
And even Army Corps, I mean, so, does it happen? Yes, I don't know if do you have a wetland bylaw and regulation here in town, or is it just wetland protection?
With
Just
this,
the Wetland
with the
Protection Act.
state.
Just Wetland Protection Act, okay. So then if you disturb over 5,000 square feet, then you're talking an Army Corps of Engineer approval, which is time-intensive process, likely. And so, yeah, I mean, to your point, the wetlands laws are still the wetlands laws.
Yep.
Are there some exemptions or ways around it? Sure, but I think there's probably sufficient upland on this site where it's unnecessary to do any of that, and, you know,
Generally agree with that.
right, and you always try to, abide by what the, I always say, first, figure out where the wetlands are so you know what the site will give you, and then work around them instead of kind of bulldozing your way through, so that's,
Got a question back?
So if I heard you correctly, this subdivision has 3 houses and the
Well, just to
energy storage.
clarify, it's 3 lots.
3 lots.
There's no
3 lots.
intended use for any of these parcels.
At this time.
But those lots would be residential?
Those lots would fall under the R80 classification and all uses allowed. And right now, because of the state, battery energy storage is one of those allowed uses.
Yep.
So my question is if, first, because I thought it was housing, how close would that be to the energy storage? And is the idea that energy storage might go on all 3 plots or on only one? What are we looking at as a possibility around the energy storage in this property?
Yeah, you wanna
so,
take a
through
swing
you,
at
yeah,
it?
yeah, so through, the lots, whatever goes, so if there were to be battery energy storage here, it wouldn't need to be confined to any lot. The lot lines are somewhat of a fiction as it relates to just this plan. And so they wouldn't have to be confined to lot 1, lot 2, or lot 3. They, you know, battery energy storage could exist on wherever it needed to on the site, but that's a whole entire separate process that, you know, I think most questions will be germane to that at that point. So, but just to clarify as far as this goes, I don't think the intention is to have houses and battery energy storage, and it is the definitive plan to allow to divide the land into building lots, really only insofar as that mechanism preserves the zoning that was in effect at the time of the original filing.
And also too, since you brought it up, would you mind explaining to people in the room the difference, the 2 different pathways the state has set forth? And one of it would be local control, and the other one would take that authority completely out of the town's.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I'm probably not as brushed up as I should be on the processes.
Well, it's pretty new, right?
But yeah, and I think the regulations need to come out by March 1st, that's why I mentioned it, you know, in the next couple of weeks. So there's a local control process, and that's for the less than, I think, 5 megawatt. And then and then there's a certain standard for battery energy storage, which is measured by megawatt hours that it generates, and not like generation, like solar array would. There's timelines associated with starting and finishing that process. I think it's 12 months. And then there's the EFSB, Energy Facilities Siting Board process, which is a different regulatory body for larger projects that exceed whatever that threshold is that's not local anymore.
100 megawatts is the storage threshold.
Which I don't know what that actually means for, like, what size footprint are we talking about, right? Is it a
A Tesla battery is normally 13 kilowatts, so, right, then you gotta do math, right, times 10 times 100, it would probably be 12, 18-wheelers at a rough estimate, by the current Californian things that I've seen.
okay?
But that would be local, underneath that, and above that would be EFSB.
So 13, 18-wheelers, just to think about what that looks like, all condensed and put together, is that less than an acre? I mean, if you just have to take like a footprint of it,
Yeah, 40 by
There's no setbacks.
8.
right, but just to think about like what we're talking about for scale.
Based on the size you have, it's more likely going to be an EFSB.
Correct, that's my sense.
Because of the amount of land you have, I don't see you saying, I'm gonna take all this land, turn it into freeze it, and then I'm just gonna use 5% of it.
But I think that's really, again, I'm a little out of my expertise, but I think that is a function of what the grid can take or allows or needs, right? So when I say there's like a lot of regulatory oversight here, it's also the utility infrastructure, it's ISO New England, and it's what does the grid at large need or can bear, utility infrastructure otherwise, in this area. And I don't know that. I think your point's a good one, of there's a lot of land here, so you could fit more. I think the other limiting factor is what does the grid say about that? And so with EFSB, there is a local component. I have never been to EFSB, it's something, and frankly, I probably won't go, because it's just a different animal altogether. And from what I know, though, there is local input and there's local discussions along the way. I just candidly don't know how much there is. Like, I don't know how much say a town has and if they can squash it or not.
Okay, I got a new one in the back, so.
So I just have a question, if it is gonna be a battery storage facility, usually the ones that I've worked on, it's incorporated with a solar field that's charging the battery bank that's right next to it. So it's kinda strange that you have like a battery storage facility, it's not like they're gonna draw power off the grid and dump them into these batteries that go off peak, they're gonna use something to charge it. So it's not just essentially just the battery storage facility itself, you need a way to charge it.
But I think it's exactly what
No,
you said,
that's-
right? I think it is to pull it off of the grid. So the way it's been explained to me is when there is peak in New England, because there's this theory about clean peak, right? So there's clean peak adders that I think makes battery storage generally lucrative for developers. And so if there's a demand in the middle of August for the Northeast to get additional electricity and there's not enough generation here, what has happened in the past is, you know, somebody in West Virginia with a coal-fired plant that's out of compliance knows that even with the fines, they can flip the switch to make the energy to send up to the Northeast because they're gonna make so much money for sending that. And so,
That's true, but if you look at the new transmission line, it is tied into Quebec.
yep,
That the governor was like,
Who
this
knows
is
what's
gonna
gonna
solve all our problems, what happened?
right,
It got cold up there and they shut the power off coming down here to
Yep.
Mass.
yep,
So if that's the idea, that they're gonna take power off the grid from
You got it.
Quebec and dump it in these facilities, if Quebec needs the power, we're screwed and your rates are gonna freaking quadruple because the states that are generating the power are gonna make a profit after selling it to another state that doesn't generate any
Yep.
of their power.
yeah, I
It's
see your
just
point.
economics.
No, I mean, I see exactly
So
what
it's
you're
really
saying.
not a green, energy system, because what's actually charging these battery banks? Well, you got nuclear power, you got cogen, you've got, coal that's
Coal, either
fired,
in it still?
you know, and
No, I hear
actually,
you.
believe it or not, I don't know if anybody knows this, but in New Hampshire, they're actually talking about building nuclear power plants up there again. So right over the border, we're gonna have nuke plants,
Yeah,
and what are we gonna have?
yeah, batteries.
We're gonna have batteries.
Empty
They're-
pockets.
I hear you, I hear you.
I'm just.
Yeah, no, I.
Right now, those batteries, that whole system is obsolete. The technology of that, lithium batteries, they're all electronic batteries now, they got salt batteries. There's a whole different thing, then you're talking about fusion reactors, like I told everybody in this room, I worked on the first fusion reactor in the country out of Fort Devens. Okay, granted, that may be 5-10 years away, but Bill Gates dumped $500 million, one guy, into that job.
Well, just to kind of stay on track,
I'm just-
trying to get up to science.
It's, and and I hear what you're, I mean,
But
I
I'm just
hear
saying,
what you're
that this is for the
I don't
town.
know what you're talking about.
Well, what it's gonna cost, you're putting obsolete technology in, that in 10 years, okay, that's great, who's gonna get stuck with the facility to pick it up?
Yeah.
When the company goes bankrupt, and you're starting to see that with all these.
Yeah, but just to, we gotta try to keep things on track a little
All
bit.
right, yeah, I'm sorry.
But yeah, no, appreciate the, insight, Matt.
Well, that was pretty much what I was gonna say
I'll give
is,
him
all of that, like it or not, nobody in this room can change that. The governor and her regime right now has decided that a battery that can store energy is green just because the concept of what he said. It can collect power off the grid at night when everybody's asleep and then put it back into the grid during the day. That's their reasoning. And they assume that any percentage, that's how the judges determined it with this Dover Amendment or whatever, any percentage of the power created by green energy, even if it's 0.01%, by storing that 0.01%, you are now part of the green energy system. What they're doing is they're redefining the entire national grid, electric grid, not National Grid, because it's Eversource, it's whoever's on it, as a green energy system. Because otherwise, how can you not say every transformer's green, every cable on the system's green, because it's all required to do the same thing the batteries do. So it doesn't really matter. You're talking to people who don't care what you have to say.
Yeah, I guess.
And you're not gonna fix it in this room. You're only gonna fix it at the ballot.
Oh, yeah, Matt, just to bring
And that's
back-
all I had to say.
Just want to bring back the point, so the intent for me to have the discussion about the two paths is just so people in this room can understand that more than likely, if the size of this facility is above the threshold, we are gonna completely lose control over any sort of decision-making moving forward, and this possibly could just lay entirely with the state. So this presentation would go to the state, it would be determined by the state, and then it would be, you know, the responsibility or the liability would be on us. So I just kinda wanna make that point made moving forward, that is a very real possibility. Sam?
Didn't one of our selectmen establish a 3-year moratorium for this?
You can't.
No idea. You'd have to
He
bring.
doesn't have the power to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought Richard Stevens
He wishes.
established a,
I mean, I think that'd be speculation, that's beyond this board. but-
okay, I wasn't.
I've heard
sure.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I've heard
I saw
talk
one in the-
about it,
Oh,
but
okay, okay.
And one in the middle back there, you have a hand?
Yeah, hi. My question is for Attorney Reedy. You just said that it would not be homes and a battery energy storage facility, and you sort of chuckled at it. That's why all of us are in the room. Because we don't want a battery energy storage facility near our homes that already exist. At the December meeting, I asked you to take a question back to your individual in Hardwick or your mysterious group in Hardwick or wherever they are, and ask them, as Attorney Winter said, that the owner of the land is allowed to do their highest and best use of the land. But we all live here, and nobody wants a battery energy storage facility. Your client that you are representing, they're the ones that actually have the power right now to put an end to this. They could build houses, they could pasture it out, they could do whatever they want. They don't have to go down this road. No one wants it. Why does your client, and I asked you this in December, I don't know if you bothered to, relay it, that'd be great if you did. But why do they want this to be their legacy? Why do they want to do this to their neighbors, to our town, to our community? That's what I still want to know from your client or your clients. They have the power to end it. At least in this particular plot of land, in this particular moment. We still have a major problem with the state issue and so on. But your clients don't have to go down this road. Yeah, they've already shelled out a boatload of cash to you and everybody else who's working on this. But they don't have to do this. And I would ask them to look inside their hearts, to look inside their conscience, and change their mind. That's what I would ask.
They don't care.
Thank you.
You had one in the back?
Just a point of clarification for the chair, and then a comment question on the parcels outlined. The point of clarification is that the EFSB, technically, and OCAM did follow this, they can be partitioners with the process.
Yep.
So that is something that, technically, the EFSB is supposed to listen to the folks that become partitioners against the process, or with the process. There is still a window with that, people need to be aware of that, we need to be careful and make sure that if the EFSB takes under this application under consideration, based on the size, whenever this becomes real and not a subdivision, that is something that the town folk need to look at. And then secondly, did I hear you correctly, Attorney Reedy, that according to this subdivision on this plan, there is no cogeneration? Because I thought I saw notes on there that there would be.
Sure, so through the chair, maybe
Yeah.
a couple things. First, just to address I did laugh when we said battery energy storage and housing, just because it's, to me, this is a little bit it's of a forest, right? This is a sham plan, and so anytime I hear any use on it, I just get the chuckle because we're just proposing building lots, right? So I wasn't intending to laugh because I was thinking, battery energy storage would never go next to homes, but your point's well taken. I just wanted to clarify my chuckle. And so then the second piece is a little bit of the same line, where there is no proposed end use for this site. It is really, through this process, the subdivision plan, it is to create 3 building lots. And that's where I wanna draw that divide between ultimate end use of the property, and what we're actually trying to do here.
So if there's houses, they're just signatory of, there could be a house in that location, because there's 3 of those outlined. And then secondly, there are in the notes cogeneration of solar. So does that mean that it shouldn't be there? I don't remember the exact page, and I could find it in a moment if you'd like, but does that invalidate the plan, that there's things listed on there for end use that in fact you're just saying don't matter? And that's what I'm confused.
Yeah, no, I don't think, if it's there, I don't think it
I
was.
think it was on the preliminary.
Plan.
It's on this plan, it says solar.
Okay.
But I don't know that, I mean, at the end of the, I don't think that invalidates anything.
One thing I would like to ask Floyd, if you could just let me know if I'm accurate when I say this. My understanding is, despite the fact this plan is showing 3 lots, the truth is, the only thing, if I'm correct, that has to stay and it still be the plan that was approved is the road.
No.
You can add as many more lots than 3 as you want.
We would have to, if I could, so, no on the first piece, even with the road.
Oh,
It is just the way that the law is written with this, it is the land shown on the plan. And so then case law,
and what you do with it,
where you.
doesn't
put
matter,
access, where
anything you put in here,
Correct. And there's case law like.
you just gotta come back later if you changed it significantly enough.
Not even that, right? So a couple of things. If we were, and I'll go down a couple of different roads here. So for the purpose of the zoning freeze, it's the land shown on the plan. And then subsequent case law has said, and you don't even have to build what is on this plan as long as the land was shown on the plan that was approved, right? So this is from a case where there was like, and because the neighbor said, well, what do you mean? This shows one thing and you're trying to build something totally different. And the court said, no, the statute says the land shown on the plan. It doesn't say the land with the improvements as shown on it. It doesn't say any of those things. It's just the land shown on the plan. So for the zoning freeze, it's just the land. Access doesn't matter. That would be, so let's say battery storage does come in, and let's say it's small enough to be local. Access could be somewhere else, and it's going through this local process where folks may say, wait a second, why are you putting it there? That doesn't make any sense. Show us the sight lines. Show us where the curb, So it could show that, but that's in the future. So that's one. And then 2 is, if we wanted to, let's say this is a legitimate housing plan, you're only approving 3 lots. If we wanted more, we would have to come back for an A&R, because to your point, the road is approved. But I think the limiting factor would be what your bylaws require for frontage. And so you could only do so many off of this road, right? So it's this, if we were to change
Right, but
the
you could
width,
change that road to
But
a
we'd have to
mile
come back.
long.
But we'd have to come back.
That's what I was asking,
Correct.
because the road is your limiting factor in the drawing.
or the definitive subdivision plan.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and again, that's.
That's
why
all I meant, not how you
someone's
use
like-
it,
Right.
but, so the road is the one thing,
If we were to do an actual subdivision here, if we don't change the road, we can change the number of lots. If we do change the road anyway, we have to come back for a modification to the definitive plan. So we couldn't just go and do a road without your approval. We might be able to, again, depending upon your zoning and what it allows in that zoning district for frontage, et cetera, you may be able to get, and looking at it, maybe another lot or 2, but certainly not a mile road, because that would be a modification to the layout of
thank
the
you,
way.
that was the clarification, thank you.
Question in the middle?
Including the upgrade you would need for the road to get to these lots. And later on, if there is a subdivision, one day they're gonna wanna turn those roads over to the town to maintain. What might be the estimated cost to the town to do this kind of activity?
This is one that some people may not agree, but the town has to accept that road at town meeting. So there's
Stays a
nothing,
private road until
there's
such
nothing
time.
binding the town to accept liability of that road simply because somebody built that road.
But
And-
the existing road we have now, especially if you continue south or east,
Yep.
Wauwinet sucks. And it would take a great deal of upgrading to make it passable for the average bear.
Right.
Do we have an estimate of what it would cost and who would pay it? Obviously, the town would pay it.
It's-
Yeah, that one we do own, so I, you know, that'd be DPW, but I would think since we do own that, then it's their liability. But again, with the subdevelopment that's built, there is no obligation whatsoever for the town to take financial responsibility. And for some reason, people think that just because a developer builds the road, that the town is then obligated, which just, I don't understand one bit. We have one Nelson Way, which I believe, you know, we haven't taken ownership of, and that needs to be investigated to whether or not, you know, that's a whole separate project. But again, these are situations we've come across in the town in the past. So no, there would be no expectation for us to take ownership and maintenance of that property.
But you do agree we need to upgrade that road if we're gonna increase a whole bunch of traffic.
There would be a
on it?
liability there,
And
absolutely.
that is an
There's-
expensive process.
There's certain regs in the
And the town
subdivision
pays for it.
chapters that talk about that.
Right, that's one of my questions to the board. Lloyd, if you're going to approve, and I know it's gonna get pushed out because you have to wait for other reports to come in and things of that nature, but because of the condition of Wauwinet and not to be able to handle that much more traffic, whether it's a subdivision with 20 houses or a battery storage park with vehicles going in and out to accommodate traffic that it's going to create any place on Wauwinet. When you come down around Moss Brook, you can't get up Wauwinet any place other than coming down through Moss Brook or coming around from the Hardwick. That's not part of the developer's responsibility, or can the board make it part of the responsibility?
Are we gonna ask Graves Engineering if they have any situations where they've been able to, put the burden on the developer to improve town roads adjacent to the road they're developing? But, I mean, that's beyond my experience, and, I mean, just a guess would be that
Somebody's
it's-
gotta take care of it. If you've got 18-wheel, not even 10-wheelers or anything to that size coming up and down the road to
Right.
do any type of development, it's gonna be impassable, just coming down around Moose Brook. It's impassable. Coming up the back way with large vehicles is very difficult. Trying to get two cars.
I mean,
through the
this
same-
might be somewhat synonymous with the, town of Hardwick, where they had a landfill put out on a back road. And that was one of the major, contentions of the residents, was that they had tractor-trailer trucks running up and down a road that wasn't built. So, I mean, that might be a similar situation where, depending on how this is ultimately developed, that,
December 17th.
Well, no, I'm saying before the planning board would accept it, whether it be 6 weeks, 8
That-
weeks,
that's-
10 weeks.
that's something we'll look
Who do
into.
you find out from to see
That-
who's
that's the same thing
responsible
with the town
to
clerk.
do the maintenance
think
or
it's January?
rebuilding of Wauwinet in
Am I
order to
wrong?
accommodate that type of traffic?
Oh.
It's gotta be to some board.
Because I'm just
I mean,
thinking
somebody's
we're
gotta be
getting really
responsible for it
close.
prior to its authorization of being built.
yeah, I mean, I think that's something we'll take up with DPW, we'll ask Graves Engineering,
January, okay.
and we can add that to the discussion.
Does this go through the DPW to get approved?
Does not.
No,
Okay.
no, but they
I
would tell us who
mentioned
has
that
the
if we
liability
continue
of
past that
improving the
date,
road.
and
That's
the
something that
attorney
they would
said,
probably
"Oh,
have
no, it
Well, I
doesn't
mean,
more
would that be
experience.
in the
Time."
planning board's purview in order
Okay,
to
because that's what, so.
okay or not?
Set
so I would
conditions
come
on
out
that?
to,
There are-
Structure?
We'll have to
So
review that.
probably April?
That-
Okay.
Read our subdivision regulations, which are not a bylaw, they're a regulation approved by the planning
I
board,
think I
which
came
they
out to
just
like
as
April
needed.
17th. Does that
Obviously,
sound about
it
right?
doesn't impact an application already received, you can't just throw more regs in the middle of it.
Yeah, 'cause
Some
every
of those
other
do
place I
speak
have, if we
to
continue,
connections
that
to
means, like,
primary and secondary
I missed the
roads and the
time. I
impact
don't know
that
if
this
it's
would
something
have
you
on
can
the
work out.
secondary or the primary road. And some of that may or may not require certain modifications in those subdivisions. This is where Graves is gonna look through it and give us
Yep.
an update to say if anything in this
Impacts,
has any of those kickers in, then we can legally throw that into our response and say you need to upgrade your plan to address these issues.
so that it is in the purview of
Oh, okay,
the
that's what that
planning
is.
board if in fact it's going to
Yeah, I
impact
got January
according to
14th here.
grades.
You have the
Yes,
13th.
there are only
That's-
two
no,
boards on a
13th.
subdivision that have
That's what you
separate
lost.
jurisdiction to tell the
What'd you have?
applicant, if I'm correct, and that's the Board of Health and the Planning Board. But every other board that works for the town has the ability to provide input to those, so we can then express
Okay,
our response. So in other words, DPW Commission, we can talk to them, and they can tell us,
That's
this
why
is
I'm
what we
worried,
think we
'cause we're
need.
already
And then we'll see if we have the
February.
regulations
We
in
can't
place
go beyond-
to enforce that.
Okay. Then maybe a suggestion to the board is to reach out to these other departments, whether it be the DPW, the water commission. If you've got a retention pond there, or whatever you want to call it, that's going to
Is
overflow
that
and
gonna
go
give you
down
enough time?
to Moose Brook. I mean, you've got water that comes across the road now during heavy rainfall.
What day is that? Is that a
that flows
Thursday?
across it. Anything
Alright.
upland of that is going to come
Well,
downhill.
see if Thursday works for this
The
room.
nature of the beast, right?
Oh.
So, it's gonna have some type of impact.
Oh, okay.
Who handles that? Does the
Wednesday
water
would be
department,
okay.
because it's
He
not public
can't do
water, but it is,
Tuesdays.
or conservation handles
So
it.
that would be
So maybe we should get all of these
a
other
holiday,
departments
is it? We're not gonna be open, right?
in here at the same time that you
Okay.
guys are trying to discuss it, and then the constituents in town can say, hey, this is a concern, who handles that? And then,
Yeah,
those
and not that we're,
department heads
Well, that's
can-
what
and not that we're not
Asking
taking this
that
process
is less.
seriously, and we need to make sure that this does adhere to all the regulations.
Timeline.
But as disclosed by the applicant, this
Okay.
whole project
Okay.
is a farce.
Oh,
Okay.
I understand.
So it's kind of
that.
like, how much time do we wanna take out of the other
As much
departments?
time as it takes to do it correctly, so you
We'll
either
try
approve it or
April
disapprove
1st on a
it. That's how
Wednesday,
much time it
so,
takes.
yeah.
No, I do agree, that's why Graves Engineering would, they'd offer analysis for the detention pond.
Huh?
So,
Oh.
certainly gonna go through and be thorough, but also too, that we wanna keep in mind that we don't wanna further burden the town for something that's described as a farce.
Well, we're burdening the town people, whether we burden town hall, and then, it all comes back to bite us in the ass later anyways. Right, so we either burden town hall, or you put the burden on the citizens. So I think you do your due diligence and make sure everything is done in conformance, and whether Gray's has the final word on it or not, I don't know. But, all departments should be involved in it, if in fact they have to, the planning board has to go through them to see whether it's viable or not.
No, I do agree, but also too, I don't wanna waste, time and money of the town for something that's not gonna have an appreciable return on the
At
town's
some
spend.
point in time, there's going to be something built on those 3 parcels.
And that needs scrutiny.
Okay, so that's what's actually being purviewed, right? They're doing it as a subdivision, knowing that it can be transformed over anytime within that process.
Right, but the
Once the subdivision's approved,
yes,
they can put anything on it.
right, but that
Okay.
plan would not have a scrap of information on this plan.
It doesn't have to.
I
We're
agree.
talking about the traffic going up and down the road and
Mhm.
what they presented to you at this time. If in fact this doesn't meet what we need in the town to keep the people happy, then that's, and you're legally able to say, oh, can't do it because the road's not wide enough, the water's gonna run downhill, it's gonna flood the road, that's where you come in and say, we can't approve it. Whether it's 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks from now, all the ducks in a row, it can be disapproved or approved.
Yeah, no, certainly have as much review on this as necessary, but again, we need to keep in mind that this is just,
Yeah,
a farce.
it's something that's coming up for approval that you have the ability to disapprove.
Yep.
Okay,
if it's,
all right.
yeah, so anyway, yeah, you can give you a new
Just
one.
so I understand this process.
Yep.
He's submitting this to get this approval
Mhm.
for the subdivision. If he meets the criteria that you're gonna oversee, and you approve it,
Mhm.
at that point in time, anything goes in terms of what they wanna put on this property,
Anything that's applicable in the R80
Right.
zone.
legally or whatever. So-
Anything that was allowed by, depending on the size of it, that the state allows, not even our local planning zoning.
Yeah, and maybe even back up once more, it's not just, if I could, that we get this approved and then the door's open and we can just do anything.
Well,
There's a whole other process
Mhm.
that may involve the town either more intimately or however it happens through EFSB, if that's in battery energy storage. And what I don't know is the relationship between zoning freezes and EFSB, and I guess I'll say if a zoning freeze matters at all, right? So like, we're just so new in the process that, is this all just like a waste of time and money, because EFSB could say, no, 40A Section 3 says you can do this, even if the town changes their zoning in a meaningful way to prohibit it. And I don't know that. We started this process under like the old way of thinking of how to freeze this, but in the new way, I just don't know that I don't know that this matters. But to your point, we get through this process, and then whatever comes next, there's a whole separate process.
Ballpark, how long does this process take for you to get approval to move forward with the next step? Ballpark.
Depends whenever, I mean, it's the back and forth of the plans and Graves Engineering, so maybe you're looking at, we're talking about the next hearing in April, so then maybe it's that April 1st date where it's all done. Maybe we get continued again because there's additional questions, comments, so maybe May. I would imagine, like on a higher level, that's probably syncing up with when the industry will start to shake out. And this is just, again, I don't have any direct information, but I would bet like in that time, because if the regulations start coming out in March, people are gonna start going to the EFSB, and like I said, I'm not the EFSB guy, so I'm not gonna have anything to do with that.
What is EFSB
Energy
exactly?
Facility Siting Board, so that's the state regulatory agency that deals with certain projects of certain capacity. And that's just, so I think.
They would be involved in a housing project?
No.
So that's the thing that is confusing people still.
This has nothing to do with how they're gonna use the land.
Right.
Yeah, so it'd be like.
So that's
taking-
what we're confusing.
Have access.
So it'd be-
great if honesty would come in at some point.
Yeah, but it's a strange,
He has been straight honest and said anything can happen.
yeah,
He has not once said, this is what we're,
happen.
but the process.
but that's not what,
Process. It's gonna happen. Everybody knows it. Why can't we just admit that?
We are.
It's 2026, that's why. Nobody believes in honesty and credibility anymore. And I'll tell you what, it's BS. You don't live on that road. You would never live on that road if there was gonna be a battery storage facility there. There's no way in hell. You guys are worried about dollars and cents. And guess what? It's our property values that go to hell. It's our kids and our futures that nobody gives a crap about. That's what I'm pissed about.
and that's your governor.
We're
Your
all
governor's
adults.
allowing
Be
that to happen.
honest. Be honest.
Sam,
I'd like to offer suggestions that there's so many variables right now. Why can't we just continue this until we get more information?
we are.
We were giving everybody a chance to have a voice.
Yeah, we just wanna make sure that people understand.
Otherwise, we could have been done a half hour ago.
Instead
Yeah.
of making a decision today, we don't need to make decisions in a minute.
You're not gonna make it.
No, we're not making any decisions. So
No, but
again,
I'm just hoping, I'm hoping that the board understands our passion.
yeah,
Right.
So-
I definitely understand the passion. I have the same passion, you may not
Okay,
understand it, but I do.
So I think we're having a great discussion, and Tom's a nice guy here, and we're having fun, and there's no sense of getting pissed off, but I think we need to know a lot more information before the board says, we approved the definitive.
yeah, we have a lot of information that we need to get.
Yeah.
So again, just explain this, that this process is merely to freeze the zoning. So this is a legal use, so as long as they apply for any legal use, if I'm correct, then any legal use moving forward would still be on the table. So the road, the 3 lots, all that is meaningless.
If.
All that does is, so they could come through and he could do a larger subdivision, smaller subdivision, he could put, anything allowed in R80.
If the citizens say, we have lots of them here as a representative, that we don't want you to, we want you to continue this, and we don't want at this point to freeze the zoning, then they have their options, and we have our options, and we can continue, but we shouldn't make anything that we're stuck with.
No, we have a lot more, and again, too, the other thing I wanna make a point of is, when the state determines how they're gonna proceed, if it's large enough, we could lose control. You know, we might have an associated position like 40B, which the state comes in and says that these are the regulations. They don't have to meet the town's zoning regulations, and they get the additional lots. And they still allow participation, but again, it's dependent on what the state does, we might lose a lot of control.
Don't we have an opportunity to buy the land? Isn't there?
Yeah,
I mean, these are all other things to
Isn't that
consider.
The select board may be dealing with that, I don't know.
Discussions, yeah, but we gotta say, well, let's talk to the select board if we wanna buy the land.
But
They've already
so-
created a subcommittee to work on that.
To not
They
get too,
have, okay, good. Well,
to
you
not get
should
too far,
let everybody know.
Well, that's the select board's job to let everybody know, not us.
yes.
I only learned it because I watched the select board
No,
meeting.
but I'm glad I said something, just to remind people that this is not the end of the deal at this point. We have a select board,
We're
we
just
have to
getting-
make decisions. It's unfortunate one of the selectmen aren't here, but maybe we should build one of these battery storage right next to Maureen Marshall's house.
So anyways, I guess we've,
I do have, could I get a question?
yeah, we're trying to wrap it up, but we'll give you another
Right,
question.
through you to Tom Thompson. And it's not happening tonight or anything in the very, very near future, but if the planning board has the legal right at some point in time because of conditions of whatever, to disapprove this plan, where does that go from there, on your end of it?
Sure.
Please, if you would.
Good question. I don't know. I think it would depend on a couple of things. I think it would depend on EFSB, so
Well,
if.
no, because we're not in a battery storage
No,
project.
no, I,
We're getting the plan
right,
first.
so, let me finish,
Yeah,
if I
it's-
could, right?
He hinted at it.
So, if, like, so to get a battery energy storage project here, there's a lot of, you know, behind the scenes hurdles that have to, ISO New England, utility infrastructure, et cetera, right? If the purpose of this freeze, like I've said from the beginning, is ultimately to get to that battery energy storage. So if through EFSB, because the project is large enough, you do not need to freeze zoning, then there's a decision that the applicant will have to make of, do they appeal the denial and spend money against the town that way? Or if ESB doesn't care whether or not the zoning's frozen or not, from a, you know, again, it's not my decision, but from a business perspective, why would they spend money to a decision that has no ultimate consequence to a battery energy storage
Right,
project if
then-
EFSB doesn't? So
Then
to
they,
answer your
then they
question,
put in a plan for an energy storage.
they'd probably be through EFSB.
They'll be doing that anyway,
Right.
if it's large enough.
That's, right,
But
so that's,
they haven't, and he doesn't know what the size of the energy storage park is that the applicant may want to do in the future, right? So, it's not like they're automatically gonna do it.
It's because they're just waiting a month to see what the state
I
says.
think that's probably.
And then they'll know the path they can take.
And then they may just withdraw this, right? I
They may not
mean,
need-
Oh, there's no need to withdraw, they've already done all the work.
Here.
I mean, now they'll just wait for the answer,
That's
and
right.
then they'll decide their options based on what the state said their options are, and whether this even matters anymore.
That's right, so that's,
But they gotta fulfill this until they know those options.
Right.
So they're gonna carry this forward until a decision from the planning board's made.
right.
Because if it's over 25
That's my
megawatts,
assumption. I
it's consolidated
apologize, I
permitting.
shouldn't speak
no,
for
no,
that.
that's,
Right.
what my question was, if in fact this gets disapproved by the planning board, because the road's not wide enough, the
Yeah.
groundwater's gonna be running down and polluting, Moose Brook, you know.
For any reason,
for
right,
any
just,
particular
even if it's a
reason.
specious reason,
You know,
right? And
And
then my clients have to make a decision of,
Right.
do they wanna spend the money in order to actually appeal it?
And or correct the situation.
Does it matter, like, and that's why when I bring up the EFSB, it's in that context, right? So if the ultimate end user gets some decision from ISO New England or the utility company that the interconnection is gonna be way too expensive, or there's not enough capacity to justify the cost, then then they're not gonna pursue it there either,
Either, right.
right?
Okay, so, do you know what the process is to put in a battery storage park? You've got some kind of an assumption going forward if but if it gets approved, right?
Yeah.
What do they have to do? What type of process?
I couldn't.
You know?
No, I mentioned, I mean, you probably know better, I mentioned enough about the regulatory aspect of it with, the idea is to pull it off the grid, to have it stored, and so, I mean, I don't understand the utility grid, but I know it's big enough where there are folks behind the scenes opening and closing and sending power where it needs to go. So all of that has to happen to line up to get this, even in front of EFSB. And so, I'll come back to just my role in the whole process, right? So I'm a land use attorney out of Amherst, right? Some of this stuff is just way beyond, like I come in because I say, okay, the law allows you to freeze the zoning, and developers, when they're doing potentially larger projects, which is what we're talking about here, look to freeze zoning so that the rules of the game aren't changed partway through for them. And that's really the only context I look at this in, as far as like all the other I can't even, there are attorneys that get paid thousands of dollars an hour out of Boston that know all of that.
So if I came to you and said.
I'm not one of them.
I want to put in a battery storage park, and I don't want to apply for a subdivision first, right? And I came to you to do that, what would you advise me to do other than go to Boston?
And I think it would depend on, I would probably say hook up with an electrical engineer, hook up with one of the bigger companies, because they know, like, if you came to me for a solar array, I could say, okay, first, submit an interconnection services agreement with the utility company, look at the hosting capacity map, is there availability or not? Submit that ISA, get your electrical engineer to do a one-line diagram, submit it, pay your fees to the utility company, let's go through local permitting, bingo bango, here you go. At least you're approved, and then you can go and try to do what you want with it. That, I can tell you. In all honesty, this other stuff,
As we go.
and there's big companies that do it, right? That's like, there are companies that do standalone battery energy storage systems that know what they're looking for in the grid, that understand the needs because of substation upgrades here and transformer, like, they know all of that. And I don't wanna minimize what I do, but I'm just like a country lawyer. It's like, I get this land use.
So I'm just gonna take one more question and then,
Yeah, so let me get this straight and try to understand this. The state's only gonna come in, and I'm sorry, EFSB?
EFSB.
Whatever that is only gonna come in if the wattage of the system they're planning is a certain, so what's the wattage they're planning?
I don't know.
Well, we
I'm
wanna-
assuming it's, right, and so I assume it's above the 100 megawatt hour, he's not here anymore, but I
Right.
think he said 100
So all
megawatt
of
hour
this is moot,
capacity.
it doesn't even matter what we do because it's gonna go before the state.
I don't
right?
know.
This is all
yeah,
fucking
I
bullshit.
just wanted to, either way, I just
don't
wanted to
know.
have people acknowledge that. But
Right.
again, this is a
So why
self-disclosed
don't we just
farce.
vote no on this, push it out as
We
far
need-
as
we
we
need-
can, and then try to battle the state?
Yeah,
Why
just-
do we even try to battle this if we're not gonna win on this?
Yeah, deal in the courts on it, right?
We'll see
That's-
what-
that's
Well,
where
we'll
it
see
goes.
what
But then
it
it-
is.
I mean, if it is, then it costs the town money to do that. If it doesn't matter, why not just approve it and let it go? I mean, that's the way I would.
There's two paths, so we need to treat this as a legitimate proposal, and we need to make sure that this is reviewed and accurate. And then if they, because it's part of the process. So let's say somebody is clever and they like to make a movie, right? So they get everybody outraged about a battery storage facility. And everybody's protesting battery storage, blah, 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 and he presents this plan, he says, it's not gonna be real, battery storage, so we go through and we approve this, nobody looked at it, and then he takes the plan and calls the excavator in. You know, I mean, who knows? We need to treat this is an approval, we're gonna sign this. We need to make sure that this is a legal document that meets scrutiny. And then the next step, if they so decide, is gonna be battery storage. I mean, for all we know, battery storage is gonna get kicked down the road, it's gonna be non-viable, and they're not gonna get invested for battery storage. There's so many undetermineds, we need to approach every step as if it's a legitimate step. But I also want people in the audience to know that this is a self-proclaimed farce. Even though we're treating it as a legitimate process, battery storage as the proposed end goal. And when they pursue that, they're gonna have to make sure they meet all the requirements, and those requirements are not set by the state. And also too, so that people understand that as they move forward on battery storage, the state might come in and say, take a seat, we're gonna handle this, you know, and then it's gonna be completely outside of our control.
Can this small board make a decision, with this limited number of people, we have 5,000 people or so in town, make a decision whether we want Barry to spend a little bit more legal money before we make decisions?
I think in general, we're moving through the process, and that will be determined But again, I mean, I think we've answered all the questions, hopefully everybody understands.
You're going to incorporate the other departments into this discussion before there's, and I know we're gonna be 8, 10 weeks down the
Yep.
road, but you're going to incorporate all the other departments so they can be in there to answer questions of the people of the town at the same time that it's being posed to you guys, because it'd be unfair.
No, they won't do that.
They won't come in to be able to say, well, legally.
Not to
no, we have
represent
to
their
write it
board, they
in.
might show up in the crowd like Richard
Yeah,
Stevens
we're
did on
continuing
one
to reach
meeting,
out to
but he's not
everybody,
gonna
but we
stand
can't
up here.
decide for them what sort of involvement they would have.
Okay, can you go through the select board to have them compile everything that's needed for you two guys to make an educated decision as to whether the road needs to be widened or whether the Conservation Commission should come down and see if the water's gonna
I mean, again, we're-
That's why we've hired Graves Engineering.
Yeah, again, we're
He is
going-
going to detail that for us.
Yep.
And as far as conservation, if there are wetlands, they're
It's not-
going to conservation and DEP no matter what.
So Graves works for us?
So,
Yes.
yes, they're working for us, but they are paying
They're
for us.
responsible to
Oh,
pay.
okay.
They're responsible to pay, so we don't even have a determination, he's starting it tomorrow.
Right, but Conservation should look at it to see where the water runoff's gonna go, no?
No, because there's nothing there
Not
to
until
look
they
at.
actually,
Yeah.
There's nothing there yet.
that's after this step. When they decide to actually develop on it and they tell us what they wanna do, now they go.
They're gonna be putting.
No, they told you that they're freezing the bylaws to figure out what to
They're giving you
do.
a plan that shows a water basin.
That's because the state allows them to give them a plan to freeze the bylaws.
Yeah.
They're using a legal mechanism.
Plan, though. That plan.
We just talked about what in this plan actually sticks,
Yeah.
and it's the road.
And I think your point is, even within the context of the subdivision plan, there may need to be some conservation review
Right.
because of and I think and I'd say, you're looping in water with Conservation Commission, and Graves is gonna look at that.
Okay.
That concern will be addressed by Graves,
All
right?
right,
He's
'cause
gonna
that's
look
not-
at,
what he
yes,
said was
but I understand
conservation might
exactly,
have to be
yeah,
involved
yeah.
later.
But for the planning that freezes the zoning, conservation isn't applicable if they never actually do anything. So conservation only comes into applicability if they actually plan to move forward with this proposal. Then conservation would review it, and then we would make alterations if necessary before they actually proceed with construction. But again, if all they care about is freezing zoning, that's not gonna affect the wetlands up there. That's a whole separate department. So just, it's hard to understand that they're doing all this that matters, but it really doesn't.
No, I understand why they submit the plan.
Yeah, so
And it's just to
conservation,
freeze the zoning,
Yep.
I get that.
Yep.
But you're going to approve a plan that they submitted,
Mhm.
is what I'm saying.
Yep.
If that plan does not conform to what the standards would be for the road widths or whatever, I guess Graves handles that.
yes,
But at some point in time, Conservation would have to look at it because there's a retention pond on
Mhm.
there. Whether that's gonna overflow into Moose Brook or come down
Yep.
across Wauwinet. So, that's part of the plan,
it's a different process. It's a different department.
but it's part of the plan,
No, it's not. It's not part of this plan.
They don't need a
It's on the
conser,
plan.
right, but they don't need approval from conservation to
No, but
proceed.
they need approval from the planning board, who is supposed to look at all aspects of it to see if it's legal.
Yes, and that's what we will do.
Okay.
But again, if they proceed and it goes to conservation and alterations need to be made, that's the process. And
In other
you-
words, that comes later in the process.
Yes,
I suppose if we
But-
don't like what planning does, we could recall them all.
sure.
Sure.
It's all right. I'm only here for another 6 weeks.
Go
So
ahead.
again, I think that we're
It'll take you longer to get the signatures.
gonna wrap up the questions,
Very
One more question.
if it's quick.
How far down the road is the definitive plan coming into play?
What do you mean?
This is a definitive plan, right?
How far down, 6 months, 3 months, does the definitive plan come into play?
Yes,
This
I
is
would
the
like,
definitive.
Matt, let the lawyer answer.
He's already answered it 3 times.
I know,
Is it
but we'll
the-
just let it
is he
quick.
asking for the 8
Whose
years?
side are you on anyway?
Are you saying when does he have to build based on an approved definitive plan?
He said this isn't the definitive plan.
This is.
This is.
No, this is.
This is.
This
the
is.
definitive
For review.
plan,
Mhm.
yes.
It may not be the final because our review comments may require them to add more to it.
All right, so,
And that's a month or 2 out by the time we probably land at that final.
Okay.
so I make a motion that we continue glasses on there?
We should turn each other, man.
I second that
So I
motion.
make the motion, we continue
Go
to
right ahead.
Wednesday, April 1st at 7 PM.
Lighten up.
And the select, they really wanna
In the
have.
select board?
No, I'm just, I'm
the
as
select board meeting
frustrated
room?
as you guys with the
Second.
process.
Second, all in favor?
Hello?
Aye.
I already seconded it.
Okay.
Okay.
He didn't
What are
make
we
the
doing?
motion yet.
Continue to April
He
1st at
did.
7 o'clock
Yes, and then,
here.
yeah, he didn't make.
Hopefully by that point, Graves
asked for one?
comes out,
Is that what
they'll
it
have
was? Not made one?
review.
I seconded it.
We may know a little bit more about.
Yeah, you
I just mean I
seconded.
seconded it before you. I seconded it
I
right
know.
after you
Yeah,
said
I didn't read the motion yet. So that's why I wanted to make sure I read the motion.
Stayed away
You just
from
said I made a motion to
kind of
continue.
about that.
Yeah, but then
And then I
I,
said
Then he said the
second.
date.
no, but then I paused and read the date and everything else.
I don't,
So I started
I
over.
understand
Oh,
what you're
you're-
saying about the.
I started over.
My misunderstanding, I'm sorry.
Right.
Right.
Excuse me, before anybody goes,
So make a motion to
before
close the
anybody
hearing.
goes.
So make a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn the meeting? Yeah.
Adjourn the meeting?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.